Hello everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. My name is Ruben and I'm going to talk you through the Aquatone range of boards for 2021. If you're looking to get into paddleboarding this year, or maybe even after a second paddleboard, the Aquatone Ranger boards, not only are these paddleboards on the cheaper price point of the market, but they are actually available in shops as well, so you can actually go see and maybe even try a paddleboard before you buy one. Now, Aquatone are actually the sister brand to Astron. Astron, if you're unaware, are the slightly more expensive price point boards. They are double chamber boards where you have an internal chamber which you inflate as well. These are all single chamber boards and they are that cheaper price point. Still very good looking boards with a nice range of products that will suit many of you paddlers out there. So they have 11 boards in their range in total, starting off with the smallest board, that is the kiddie board. The Neon, 9 foot long, it's 28 inches wide, it's 4.75 inches thick, and the volume is 175 litres. When we weighed that board, it weighed 6.89 kilograms or 15.18 pounds. The price point on that retails at £269 or euros, so you're sitting at a really cheap price point for a kid's paddleboard. Next off, we have the Mist 10-4. Now, the Mist 10-4 is a small foldable board. Basically, the board is much smaller when you fold it up and put it in a bag. That is 32 inches wide, 6 inches thick, and it brings the volume at 295 litres, and that retails at £349. Then moving up from that, you have the Wave 10 foot, similar characteristics to the Mist, except it doesn't go so small in a bag. That's 32 inches wide, 6 inches thick, and that retails, again, very cheap price point at £299. And remember, all of these boards come complete with a package, which we'll speak about in a minute. The Wave 10-6, which is a slightly longer board, is 32 inches wide, 6 inches thick, 300 litres in volume, £329. The Wave Plus 11, slightly longer again, 32 inches wide, 6 inches thick, 310 litres in volume, retails at £349. The Wave Plus 12, 32 inches wide, 6 inches thick, and 320 litres in volume. We weigh that board at 10 kilograms or 22 pounds, so the weights are still staying down on all of these boards. The Flame 11-6 is a 32 board by 6 inches, 306 litres. We weigh that board at 9.25 kilograms, so it's actually lighter than the Wave Plus, which we'll speak about in a minute of why. Retails at £439. They do a Flame 12-6, which is a longer version by 32, 6 inches thick, 339 litres, and that retails at £469. Then moving on to your longer boards, you've got your Ocean 14 foot by 27 wide, 6 inches thick, 320 litres. That retails at £475. Then also it's definitely worth mentioning the two big boards, the Jungle 13 and the Mega Jungle 16. That Jungle 13 is at £599, great sort of tandem board, and the Mega Jungle retails at £799. And that, bear in mind, that comes with multiple paddles, multiple pumps, everything you need to get a lot of you, maybe a big family on the water in one go. So you can see all of their boards, apart from the two bigger jungle boards, are well under £500 in retail price. Now that is really competitive, especially when you can go to a shop and you can speak to somebody about your boards. Usually price points like that are very much direct sell brands. They're brands that you can only buy online, mail order only. So it's very different to see a price point like that come into a shop. So speaking a bit more about those boards, let's talk about the constructions of those boards. There's basically two main different types of constructions. You have single layer stringer technology and you have double layer fusion technology. All the boards are made of drop stitch, which is how we have an internal core of nylon threads going from the top to the bottom. That's pretty much what gives all iSUPs on the market their rigidity. It's really to do with the multiple layers that they put on top of that, and also how it's fused, how it's stuck together. So the cheaper price point boards, the Neon and the Waves and the Wave Pluses, and actually the Mist as well, they are a single layer of PVC. So they are not double layer PVCs like the Flame and the Ocean board are. So what does that do? Well, that does actually keep the weight down of the board quite a lot. You still got double layers on the rails, so it's still fairly hard wearing, but remember, it's not as hard wearing or as stiff as the double layer boards like you have with the Flame and the Ocean board. Having more layers of PVC does help give the stiffness up, which we'll speak about in a minute. But to make the Neon, Mist and Wave range of boards a little bit stiffer, they've put a stringer, a second layer of PVC down the top and bottom of the board. The only other big difference is the Flame and the Ocean are made of fusion technology. So what's the difference between fusion technology? Well, basically, usually when you make multiple layers of PVC or you stick PVC on top of your drop sticks, you have to use glue, and glue adds weight, and it also means somebody has to physically put the glue on and stick the board together. Fusion technology is put on with heat, so you take the secondary layer and you put it on top and you heat the two layers till they bond together, so therefore you reduce glue and you also reduce the risk of manufacturing defects. So the Flame and the Ocean use fusion technology, and the Neon, the Mist and the Wave range of boards are not fusion technology. Therefore, the Flame and the Ocean are actually a little bit lighter for the size of boards that they are, because that fusion technology absorbs less weight when it's manufactured. So what does all that mean? Well, it means the weights of the boards do change, but it also means the stiffnesses of the boards do change. So when you're standing on them, your board will bend a little bit more if it has less materials in it and if it is not made with fusion technology. If we look at the deflection test, which is what we do on all of our inflatable paddle boards when we review them, so we put them on a gap of 1.5 meters apart and we put a weight of 75 kilograms on the center of the board, and then we measure how much the board bends or deflects. Looking at the board that's bound to bend the most, because it's the thinnest board at 4.75 inches, you have the Neon. That dropped 32 millimeters, which is a fairly hefty drop. It's a fairly large amount of bend there. It's only pumped up to 15 psi. It's a single layer PVC construction with a secondary stringer down the middle, but it is designed for kids. It's designed for lighter riders. So for kids, people sub 70, 65 kilograms, that sort of board is absolutely fine, and they're not going to notice it flexing under their feet so much. Obviously, if you put a 100 kilo person on that board will bend a lot more and you are going to notice it. But then that's why they've got thicker base boards in the range and boards with more layers as well. So moving on to the Wave range, you'll notice that those are all 6 inches thick boards. Now what happens when you put the same materials and put it in a thicker board? Well, the stiffness goes up quite a lot more. Now we put the Wave into our deflection test. Remember, this is pumped up to the same PSI pressure and it's made in the same way as the smaller board, and that only dropped 18 millimeters. So it's a lot stiffer having that extra thickness in that board. Therefore, if you're a rider of up to 100 kilos, 110 kilos, maybe even 115, 20 kilos on the bigger boards, they are going to take your weight and it's going to be much nicer to paddle than obviously the thinner board that deflects a lot more. Moving on to the Flame and the Ocean, they're going to be the same. We measured the Flame in our deflection test and that only dropped 16 millimeters, which shows you how much the fusion technology works to make the board stiffer, and having extra layer of PVC around the complete shell of the board gives you so much stiffness, and that's still pumped up to the same 15 psi. And that's pretty much what you pay for with all paddle boards where you're looking at Aquatone, Astron or other brands. The more layers, the more material, the stiffer the board is, the more you're going to pay for it. So therefore, if you are a heavier person, you really do want to look at a bit more performance, then probably spending more money into a better board with extra layers or a board with double chambers is going to be more beneficial for you. But if you're a lighter paddler and you just want to get on the water and have fun, muck about with the kids and your friends, and you know performance isn't definitely something you're looking at, then you know that looking at a cheaper price point board of those stiffnesses is absolutely fine. So as we just talked about stiffnesses, what sort of rider weights would we recommend for these range of boards? With the Neon, I would say about 75 kilograms would be a max rider rate. For the Mist 10.4, about 95 kilograms. For the Wave 10 foot, 100 kilograms. For the Wave 10.6, again, I still say 100 kilograms. For the 11 foot, the Wave Plus, 115 kilograms. And the Wave Plus 12, 125 kilograms. For the Flame 11.6, 120 kilograms. For the Flame 12.6, 130 kilograms. And for the Ocean 14 foot, 110 kilograms. Now, I will say we get a lot of questions about, and people may get confused over what the brands recommend the max payload is and what we might say the max recommended rider weight is, because a board like this 11.6 Flame here can take a huge amount of weight to physically sink the board. It's going to take a lot of kilograms of weight to push this board down in the water. So therefore you could be 170 kilograms maybe and ride this board, but could you actually be 170 kilograms and physically ride this board? Would this board offer you enough stability at its width? So that's why you might see the max recommended payload is different to what we recommend as a max rider weight. So looking at the range of boards, who will they best suit? What sort of ability of rider would they be looking at? Well, with the Neon board is obviously going to be the lighter paddlers. Yes, much more looking towards the kids, sub 75 kilograms, as I said. Bear in mind, all-round paddleboard you could use that for. It also would be quite fun in the waves as well because it's relatively thin. Moving on to the wave range. Now this is definitely a range that's fairly close in the sizes. The reason I say that is because they're all 32 inches wide. You've just got different lengths. The easy way to think about that is if you want to paddle a little bit further or a little bit faster, go for a longer board. Every time you put a bit more length on your board, you will be able to have more glide across the water. So if you said, right, I want to get into paddleboarding, but I really want to go down the river, I want to be able to paddle a kilometre or try and hopefully think you're going to paddle a kilometre as you get into the sport, definitely looking at the longer boards straight away would be a good place to start. They're going to be just as easy to use and to stand up, maybe a little bit easier. They will be a little bit harder to turn around. The longer the board is, still easy to do it, but it will take longer. But for most of you out there, I would say probably 10.6, 11 foot, 12 foot are going to be a good ranges for a lot of you to get into paddleboarding with. If you think you want to get into paddleboarding still, or it's your second paddleboard, but you really do want to paddle a little bit further, maybe even you want to get into a light bit of touring, then you really should be looking at more of the Flame board. It's stiffer board, it can take a bit more weight, it's going to give you that little bit more performance. You've got slightly bigger bungees up on the front here, so you can get dry bags underneath it. The board shape itself is much more pulled in at the nose, a little bit more pulled in towards the tail, therefore it's going to give you a little bit more speed. And also when you're pushing into chop, maybe you might go out and paddle in some choppier waters, the nose of the Flame Ranger boards is going to handle that much better. So it's pushing into that more longer distance touring aspect, which is so much fun, and if you do it safely, it's such a good side of the sport to get into. So if you think you want to get into paddleboarding, but you already know you want to do a certain discipline, I want to go down the river, I want to take a dry bag, I love to explore, see some more wildlife, then probably pushing you straight into the Flame Ranger boards would be a better range to look at. You can miss out on the wave range, it's still got 32 inches wide, still going to give you that stability, still going to be really easy to use to start with, but a bit more length, a bit better nose shape for punching out and using, and lots more water conditions. The Flame 11.6 and 12.6, again the longer board, a little bit more glide, just like the wave range. The more length you have, the faster the board will be. And that moves on nicely to the 14-foot Ocean. You can see a longer board again, and it's narrower too. By bringing in the width there, you're going to find you're going to reduce the drag, you're going to make the board much faster to paddle. It's going to be much nicer to paddle those longer distances again compared to the Flame. You still could take a little bit of weight with it, you still could tour with that board as well. Obviously being 27 wide, it's not as stable in the side-to-side motion as a board like 32 wide, like the Flames and the Wave range would be. But it's going to be faster, it's going to be able to take you further for less effort. And if you really are maybe wanting to get into racing, or maybe you want to do more touring but really travel further in your paddle session, and you're in that rider weight, really the golden sweet spot of 85 to 110 kilos, if you're in that sort of weight range, the Ocean is going to be a really fun board to take you places much quicker than the other boards they've got. And looking at the two bigger boards, now I think a lot of you will still be looking at these bigger boards this year because a lot of you are getting into SUP as a family. The Jungle and the big Jungle board, they are really competitive value price points. And you get the complete packages, you get loads of paddles and pumps and all that sort of stuff, loads of fins. It really, I think, is a good move. If you've got a big family or a couple kids and you want to go out all together, going for the bigger Jungle board is going to be a really good, fun thing to do as a family. You're all there together, you're not arguing because you can't hear each other, you can chat very easily. a lot of fun, and of course they'll be really easy to sell on, because if you saw one of those secondhand this summer and you want to go paddleboarding with your family, I'm sure a lot of you would jump at it. So that's a bit about the paddleboard range and who should be riding them. What about the packages you get with these boards? First off, you're going to need to pump your board up. These boards all come with a double action pump. What we mean by that is it pumps on the upstroke and it pumps on the downstroke. It's a very common pump that you find in loads of other top brands at the moment. And when the pumping gets hard, you can take this nozzle out the back and then you can just pump on the downstroke. You can get easily the 15 psi of pressure into these boards. These pumps take up to like 26 psi of pressure, so no problem at all. And the Mist, the compact foldable board, actually comes with a shorter pump again because it fits in the bag a bit easier. Being these thinner diameter pumps, even though they're two-way, they do take a bit longer to get the bigger, thicker, longer boards, get the air in them. But you will be able to do it. It's fairly easy. It just takes longer than the bigger, wider, maybe double chamber pumps you might see on the market as well. It has an inflate and deflate setting on here, which is great because you are going to have to suck the air out of the boards, but we'll speak about that in a minute. Other stuff you get a coiled leash and you get a clip-in fin system. Now the big difference between these sort of accessories compared to other cheaper price point brands is these are all logoed up Aquatone accessories. They look nice, they're well finished, they look like good stainless on the buckles and stuff. So there's a difference there. Usually you'll get your cheaper price point board. I'm not going to say there isn't cheap price point boards in the markets, there probably is, and definitely if you search around the internet I'm sure you can find some Amazon cheap price point boards, but I can guarantee you won't be getting quality accessories like this all branded up. So it's nice, the fin system clips in nice and easily. It's very sturdy, stiff fin. The stiffer the fin is, the more performance you're going to have. Obviously you don't want a fin that's bending in the water as you turn around. It's not going to be very responsive, and having a nice wide base, a relatively big fin, a 9-inch fin, is going to help you go in a straight line, so that's really important as well. The bag you get is a fairly lightweight bag. There's no padding around the back. There is slight padding around the shoulder straps, and you get a sort of chest compression strap as well. Definitely it's sort of bag that you're going to just put the board in the back of the car, maybe to carry the board 100 meters to the beach to your paddle location. If you want to take the bag further, you're going to have to definitely pad out that bag because it's not that comfortable to carry it long distances. It's absolutely the sort of thing you're going to expect to see at that price point, and to be honest, I've seen bags a lot worse than that at the same price point as well, so maybe it's a little bit better than some competitive bags. The Mist bag is very much the same, it's just a little bit shorter because obviously it's a more compact board. And that really is the only big difference in the Mist. The Mist is a very similar board to the Waves. The Mist is really only, I would say, somebody who wants to get that smaller, compact board that fits in the back of the car. Maybe you're taking it on a motorbike, maybe you're traveling further with it. The Mist is that board that's just smaller, compact nature. Paddling it and using it, it's very similar to the Wave range of boards. Obviously, the longer Waves are going to give you a bit more glide, like I said earlier, but the Mist is just more noticeable when you fold it down and it goes in the bag. Apart from that, the board's very similar to the Wave range. Looking at the paddle you get with the package, it's an aluminium 3-piece adjustable paddle with a nylon blade, therefore it can take the knocks and being pushed against the rocks. The aluminium shaft is a little bit heavier than obviously a carbon or a glass shaft, but it's something you're going to expect to see at the price point of the package. I suppose the only downside with aluminium is over time they can slightly bend, but again, it's a price point package to get you into the sport, or it's a paddle to go with that cheaper price point board. So it's the sort of thing you're going to see, and we see with lots of other brands, but it is still logoed up, Aquatone and everything, in keeping with the leash and the bag, so it does fit the package well. And the smaller Mist, more compact board comes with a 4-piece paddle as well, so it goes in that smaller bag as well. So before we go over pros and cons and value for money, the warranty you get a 1-year warranty with this brand. Unfortunately, the environmental side of the brand doesn't really shine out to us. The packaging that the board comes in, it's still rolled in quite a lot of plastic. We definitely would like to see that reduced in the future. Pros and cons and value for money. Well, pros, I do think this range of boards, especially the Wave range, is probably one of the best looking board ranges out there for the price point. I can't believe what you get and the look of the board for the price point, but again, that's always a personal thing. The deck pads are really nice and big, how they go right to the back of the board, that really does make a difference. It's a nice little feature, nice little add-on. So many brands, they cut the deck pads off short or they don't go far enough back. Really nice to see a nice big deck pad. You get a lot of boards are at that key size of stability. 32 inches wide is probably what most of you are wanting to go and paddle. Obviously, the longer the board, the more glide you can have, but that width of 32 is the golden width, and there's a lot of boards for you to choose from in that width. And the last thing, yeah, we've got to bring value for money in here. These are incredibly competitive price points. And again, because you can go to a shop and you can physically talk to somebody who can recommend a certain board, maybe you can have a go on them first. They are, again, more value than those online direct sale brands because of that. If we're looking at cons, there are definitely a few things that they could change and add on to make the products even better. Again, the neon could do with a towing eye underneath, because the amount of times that we're towing our kids, it's so much easier if you can just hook them up with a leash and just give them an extra tow. It's an extra little safety feature, definitely for somebody who's young and getting to paddleboarding. If the wind picks up, having an extra towing eye underneath can make a difference. The bungee eyelets on the flames, it would be nice if they're a little bit bigger, or having extra one, because you could get a bigger dry bag on. Again, they've got enough room here, so an extra eyelet maybe at the front or at the back of the board would give you that ability to carry a bit more weight. And the only other one, which is definitely something you need to be aware of, and it's something you're going to have to do every single time when you deflate the board, is because the valve, inflation valve, is up here in the middle of the board. When you let the air out of the board, which most of it is going to come out quite quickly, unlike other paddle boards where they have the valve at the front or the back, you're not going to be able to roll the board up and squeeze all the air out. You're going to have to put your pump on the deflate setting, attach your pump up, and suck the air out of the board. Again, it doesn't take much more time, but having used other boards, it does take a little bit longer. So if you're in a bit of a rush to get off the water, it does take longer to get your air out of your board before you roll it up. And the only other con that we've highlighted in some other cheaper price point boards in the past is the quality or the finish you'd expect and you get for that cheaper price point. If you're going to be spending twice the price on a paddleboard, you are going to expect perfect quality. You are not going to see any sort of glue residues where the extra fittings have been stuck down. You're not going to see any imperfections on the board at all. But I will say the Aquatone boards that we've been looking at have been all really well finished. Yes, there are a few maybe tiny glue marks and stuff, but it's nothing I would quibble at the price point these boards are put at. Obviously, if you've got these boards or if you had them in the past, please get your comments below. We'd love to know your feedback of how these boards have been lasting with you. All in all, the Aquatone is an incredible value price point package that's available at shops. It's definitely something that a lot of you are going to look at this year, whether you want to get into all-round paddleboarding, get your kids into paddleboarding, or paddling that little bit further. I hope you found this review interesting and informative. Any comments and questions, please let us know. If you've got quite a few questions, make sure to get it down on the SUPboarder website, because YouTube does tend to lose the thread comments as they go on and on. And of course, if you haven't checked it out already, check out SUPboarder Pro if you're mad keen on SUP. Give this video a like if you found it useful, give this video a dislike if you found it rubbish, but please write in the comments below why you disliked it and how we can improve it for the future. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on another SUPboarder video real soon.